Anyway, leaders, strategy. I have a lesson for you tonight. And again, we're going to look at the strategy of this young leader. Let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 14. All right. In 1 Samuel chapter 14, we're going to start in verse 1. It says, one day, Jonathan, son of Saul, said to his young armor bearer, come, let's go over to the Philistine outpost on the other side. But he did not tell his father. Saul was staying on the outskirts of Gibeah under the pomegranate tree in Migron. Okay, so here Saul is sitting under a tree, a pomegranate tree, and he's dreaming. Like you do, you're at a park, you're sitting down in the grass, you got the tree, the shade, you take a little nap, and you start dreaming. Jonathan, he's dreaming as well because he's going to go to the Philistine outpost. If you go to chapter 13, you see they're in battle with the Philistines, and none of the Philistines are prepared for this battle. I'm sorry, none of the uh, none of Saul's army is prepared for this battle, but the Philistines are fully prepared. And Jonathan, he's dreaming about God's power. He's like, "Hey, let's go over and start something with with the Philistines." The There's a quote that says, "All men dream, but not equally." Here you see two men, they're dreaming. One's asleep, one's awake. The title of my lesson is Dangerous Dreamers. And we're going to look at the strategy of a dangerous dreamer. You see the difference. Saul's lazy, he's a coward. And Jonathan is like, let's go. We're going to go make something happen. Drop down to verse 4. On each side of the pass that Jonathan intended to cross to reach the Philistine outpost was a cliff. One was called Bozez and the other Seneh. So what happened was you got these two cliffs, or like these two big giant rocks, and there's a path that goes in between them. And because he went to make something happen, he found an area where he could fight a large army in a small space in between this cliff. And it says here in verse 5, one cliff stood to the north toward Michmash, the other toward the south toward Geba. So why would Jonathan do this? They were outnumbered, had better weapons. Turn over to Leviticus chapter 26. Keep your finger there. We're going to come back to 1 Samuel 14. But in Leviticus chapter 26, we find the laws of Moses. And, as a young man growing up, um, you would learn the laws of Moses, you would memorize these scriptures, and you would connect with them um, by your faith in God. And in Leviticus 26, verse 6, the chapter is called Reward for Obedience. And it says in verse 6, I will grant peace in the land, and you will lie down, and no one will make you afraid. I will remove wild beasts from the land, and the sword will not pass through your country. You'll pursue your enemies, and they will fall by the sword before you. 5 of you will chase 100, and 100 of you will chase 10,000, and your enemies will fall by the sword before you. I will look on you with favor and make you fruitful and increase your numbers, and I will keep my covenant with you. You'll still be eating last year's harvest when you have to move it out to make more for new. Jonathan's relationship with God was so close. He had faith in this truth. This is a truth. This is reward for obedience. And it talks about us pursuing. And we've got to pursue those who are lost. They are living with the enemy, and we need to free them from captivity. God would give 5 victory over 100, 100 victory over 1,000. Let's go back to 1 Samuel 14. I believe Jonathan had this kind of faith. He understood the scriptures. He understood his relationship with God, that if he went to battle Philistines, just him and his armor bearer, God would give him victory. 1 Samuel 14, verse 6 says, Jonathan said to his young armor bearer, come, let's go over to the outpost of those uncircumcised men. Perhaps the Lord will act in our behalf. Nothing can hinder the Lord from saving, whether by many or by few. Nothing can hinder the Lord. We'll turn over to Matthew chapter 13. Again, keep your fingers there. Go over to Matthew chapter 13. We all believe in an all-powerful God. We all believe that he will do great things. All disciples, sold out disciples of Jesus, dream of being used powerfully by God. And only one thing is needed. Look at Matthew 13 and verse 58. It says, he did not do many miracles there because of their lack of faith. I'm calling you guys to have radical faith, intellectual belief that God is capable is not enough. We must act on our faith. We need to become dangerous dreamers. Let's go back to 1 Samuel 14 and look at this dangerous dreamer. 1 Samuel 14, verse 6, Jonathan said to his armor bearer, come, let us go over to the outpost of those uncircumcised men. Perhaps the Lord will act in our behalf. Nothing can hinder the Lord from saving, whether by many or by few. Do all that you have in mind, his armor bearer said. Go ahead. I am with you, heart and soul. This is one of my favorite passages. This has got to be the heart of the people that want to go in the ministry, the people that are in MIT, the brothers and sisters that are in your care as shepherds. They need to have this kind of heart. Go ahead. I'm with you, heart and soul. It's great when I hear a brother say that to me. Bro, I'm with you. I'm with you. Let's do this thing. Why did the armor bearer risk his life? Why is he saying that? I mean, turn back a chapter. Look at the very end of chapter 13 in verse 22. It says, so on the day of the battle, not a soldier with Saul and Jonathan had a sword or spear in his hand. Only Saul and his son Jonathan had them. They had no weapons. No one in the army had weapons. Just at this point, Jonathan, the armor bearer, had no weapons, except he was holding Jonathan's weapons. There's only one sword for the two men. Why did this armor bearer risk his life? I believe is he saw the faith of Jonathan, a son of the king, willing to risk it all. Willing to risk it all. His passion, his enthusiasm, his conviction, his walk with God Almighty made him give all of his heart and soul to Jonathan. Whatever plan you have, I'm with you. See, I'm calling all of you to imitate this kind of courage. This is what's needed. If your guys are not behind you, it's because you're not showing this kind of passion and enthusiasm and conviction and faith in what God can do through you and through the brothers and sisters in your life. You need to imitate this kind of courage. Let's keep reading. Verse 8. Jonathan said, come on then. We will cross over toward them and let them see us. If they say to us, wait there until we come to you, we will stay where you are and not go up to them. But if they say, come up to us, we'll climb up, because that will be our sign that the Lord has given them into our hands. This is a crazy strategy, but he had a strategy. Either way, he's going to fight. They're either going to come down and he's going to fight, or they're going to go up and he's going to fight. Stay and fight, go and fight. That's his strategy. The Lord is going to give us victory. You can write this down in Romans 8:31. If God is for us, who can be against us? Go and fight, stay and fight. If God is for us, who can be against us? Verse 11. So both of them showed themselves to the Philistine outpost. Look, said the Philistines, the Hebrews are crawling out of the holes they were hiding in. The men of the outpost shouted to Jonathan and his armor bearer, come up to us and we'll teach you a lesson. So Jonathan said to his armor bearer, climb up after me. The Lord has given them into the hand of Israel. Jonathan climbed up using his hands and feet with his armor bearer right behind him. The Philistines fell before Jonathan and his armor bearer followed and killed behind him. In that first attack, Jonathan and his armor bearer killed some 20 men in an area of about a half an acre. This is crazy. Crazy plan, not reasonable, a little nuts. Notice in verse 13, the Philistines fell before Jonathan. It doesn't say that Jonathan killed them. No, the armor bearer killed them. So what's going on here? We'll look over in John chapter 18. Look in John 18. I want to give you some insight and something that you need to take to heart about who you are as a son and as a daughter of God, especially as a leader and future leader of many. In John chapter 18, verse 4, he's in the garden and they've come to arrest him. Jesus, in verse 4, Jesus, knowing all that was going to happen to him, went out and asked them, who is it you want? Jesus of Nazareth, they replied. I am he, Jesus said, and Judas the traitor was standing there with him. When Jesus said, I am he, they drew back and fell to the ground. This is what was going on with Jonathan. They couldn't believe the bravery of Jesus, that he wasn't afraid to say, that's me. I'm going to take responsibility for you guys being here. I'm the guy. See, Jonathan wasn't afraid to say, I'm the guy. I'm going to go up while my dad is dreaming under a tree. I'm going to go up. I'm going to make something happen. I'm the guy. And God himself makes those men fall to the ground because he has such a life force about him. He has a force about him. He's not afraid. And God makes them fall to the ground. And his armor bearer just goes, stab, 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 kills them. Life force. You got to pray to increase your life force, to have that kind of courage. Let's go back to 1 Samuel 14. It says that God gave them 20 men in the first attack. The first attack, they were able to kill 20 men. Imagine that. I think that's a good goal for MIT. Let's baptize 20 men in our first campaign. Jonathan, he didn't drop and pray, God, save me. Nope. His sword was sharp. He went to work. He had faith in God, and God delivered them. Verse 15, then panic struck the whole army. Those in the camp and field and those in the outposts and the raiding parties and the ground shook. It was a panic sent by God. Saul's lookouts at Gibeah and Benjamin saw the army melting away in all directions. See, God did what Jonathan couldn't do. He struck the whole army with panic. Jonathan didn't have that kind of power, but God did. Then he caused an earthquake. The ground shook. Jonathan didn't have that power. God did. But see, when Jonathan did what he could do, then God did what he could do. I'm calling us all to do what we can do, and let's watch God do what he can do. Are you doing what you can do? See, if you have faith and you go after it, and your faith isn't just an intellectual belief, but you go for it, God is like, yes, that's my God. And then we'll get to watch what God does through you. Verse 20. Then Saul and all his men assembled and went to the battle. They found the Philistines in total confusion, striking each other with their swords. Those Hebrews who had previously been with the Philistines and had gone up with them to the camp went over to the Israelites who were with Saul and Jonathan. When all the Israelites who had hidden in the hill country of Ephraim heard that the Philistines were on the run, they joined the battle in hot pursuit. So on that day, the Lord saved Israel, and the battle moved on beyond Beth Aven. This is amazing. Those who had fallen away and decided to go to a different church, when they saw the power, when they saw the confusion with the men that they had associated with themselves, they're like, hey, this is the wrong place. Let's go back over where God is powerful. Let's go over there. This happened with one young man. This is 3 chapters before David kills Goliath. We had Jonathan, this young teen, takes his armor bearer, and God sees him and works through him in a powerful, powerful way. Then Saul, of course, goes, oh, wow, this is happening. And he sends his army out. And this is what happened. You guys are what stirs the rest of the church. When you guys go into battle, the rest of the church goes, okay, we got to get into this battle. And so what can we see? What can we apply from this? God is looking for a dangerous dreamer with a strategy that requires God, not just intellectually believing it, but that God can do this, but to act on our faith. You know, nothing can hinder our Lord except our lack of faith. Life force inspires our armor bearers to take risks. When we do what we can do, then God does what he can do. The quote that I started with earlier, all men dream but not equally. It goes like this. Those who dream by night in the dusty recesses of their minds wake up in the day to find that it was just vanity. But the dreamers of the day are dangerous men, for they may act their dreams with open eyes to make it possible. I want to challenge you all to dream in the day, act on your dreams. Let's start writing our strategies down for 2024 this week. Let's work on them and tweak them every week so that we too can be dangerous dreamers for the Lord. Thank you, and God bless.